Hello everyone. Welcome to this session of Udyog Your Talks, which is initiative of this Society of Industrial and Organization Psychology. So we welcome you all to this session, and I welcome uh, Dr. Swati on my personal behalf on the behalf of the Society of Industrial and Organization Psychology. Now I request Ms. Garima Yadav to formally introduce our speaker of the day to all the uh, members who have joined this session. Garima.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session organized by SOIOP. I would like to introduce today's presenter, Dr. Swati Karve. Dr. Karve is corporate trainer, organizational development, and HR consultant in India and USA. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today in this session of Udyog Care Talk. I would like to request you to please start the session.
Thank you, Garima. Thank you for your warm welcome. And I'm really honored to be here. Thank you, Dr. Sandeep, for inviting me to present in this session. And I'm going to be presenting on appreciative inquiry. Now, that's a positive psychology approach. It's a very powerful tool or a methodology for change management, and I thought that that's very appropriate right now when everybody is going through personal change as well as organizations are going through a lot of change. My plan is to present for maybe like 40 minutes or so, 45 minutes maybe. It may overshoot depending on how the explanations go. As I understand, the time has been set from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. So that's what I saw in the. Sandeep sir, do you want me to go through all the way to 7:30, or is it okay to end before?
I think you may take your own time because it's a very important topic and we need to understand the practical aspects in it. So okay. Please take your time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Just wanted to get that time thing straightened out before I started. So again, I'm very thankful to be here, and I'll just share my screen so that you all can see the presentation. Now, remember, I mean, this is not a workshop. This is a presentation. So in a workshop, typically, there would be a lot more interaction and there would be a lot more exercises. There would be breakout sessions and rooms and things like that, which you will not experience here. But I hope you go away with an idea about what appreciative inquiry is and how you can apply it in your own consulting or your own lives or for your students. So it could be in your teaching profession or whatever that you are doing. The applications could be, they are very broad. So I'll just start sharing the screen and okay, let's see. It says share a window. Okay. Just a second. It's asking me to share a window or okay, there. I think I got it. Okay. Right. So the topic for today's session is appreciative inquiry for change management. So let's look at what appreciative inquiry is, and let's look at the context of change. Okay, why are we speaking about appreciative inquiry? Why are we speaking about change? And there is this context of change. It's so urgent right now as never before. So what are the current challenges for organizations? And when I say organizations, it includes our educational institutions. Like a lot of you are from different educational institutions, you're from universities or colleges, and there is change for all of us across the board. And of course, there are changes in corporates, in organizations, whether you are a for-profit, non-profit, it doesn't matter. All of us are going, and even not just organizations, but industries. So across the board, globally, industries are going through change, and the change is percolating into organizations of all sizes, shapes, whatever it is, all types. There are major disruptions in business. Like, for example, if a lot of you are in colleges, you don't know when the admissions are starting, you don't know where, you don't know when people are going to get paid, how business is going to run. So there are major disruptions in business. For the employees, the nature of work has changed. The job content has changed for some people. The nature of work has changed. There is work from home, which a lot of us, even 4 months ago or 5 months ago, was something we could not think of, we could not imagine. And we adapted to that change. And some of us are still adapting to these changes. And as we move forward, we need to work these things into our systems so that so that number one is we are prepared for something like this, and secondly, it gives a lot of options for a number of employees as well as our customers. There are huge changes for our customers. So the way customers are now shopping, maybe it may be online, or it could be maybe the shopping hours have changed. For educational institutes, our customers are our students, our communities. So how we are interacting with our customers, who are our students and communities, it has changed. And every single function of our business is facing this change, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in logistics, production, IT, it doesn't matter, whatever you are. In an educational institute, your major function is teaching. That has changed. So every single thing, every aspect of business has changed in the current scenario. And remember that change in the current scenario was led because of this global pandemic. But change can happen because of anything. It could be the economics, it could be politics, it could be just the industry change, it could be technology. And currently, as it is, we are talking about Industry 4.0. So when we are talking about industrial change, and on top of that, you have this global pandemic which is going on, it's a major change for everybody, right? So so we need to change our policies, processes, structures, so that our organizations are running smoothly. So in the current situation, some of the questions we need to ask, you will see this icon at various places. This is like really a dialoguing thing. So how is your organization responding to the change? How were you prepared to manage this change? And importantly, what is the path ahead? And to what extent are stories and narratives of different groups of employees a part of that change process? So this last point is very important. How are different people facing different challenges or successes in the given situation? Like even in the current scenario, we have stories of great success and we have stories where people are falling behind. And that's where there is a lot of, there's a gap between people who have access, who may not have access. So there are these different stories. So how do we, how do we make a narrative out of that? What are those narratives? What are those different stories from different people? And once we get all these voices together, then we can think of, okay, what should we do? So we want everybody to be heard. And that's the reason these stories become very important. Now, typically, change management begins as a result of a stimulus. Now, it can be inside the organization or it could be outside the organization. But when we take a systems view, any change in any factor can create the change in the entire organization. And this is really the systems view, which says that the boundaries are very fuzzy between various elements in the organization, outside the organization and inside the organization. So these borders are very permeable. So anything changes, a team member changes, the team changes. When the team changes, something in the group changes. So these ripples are felt back and forth. So it could be the change could come inwards or the change could go outwards. So it doesn't matter. Anything changes over here, the ripples are felt everywhere. Now, the typical change management process that is generally followed is a very top-down one. And it's a very logical process. It's a problem-solving approach. The change begins from the top. It starts as a requirement or a mandate, or it's a decision. So many times when we go and do these change management workshops, a lot of times the change has already started, and it's like, okay, now we are changing. Now we want our employees to be motivated. What do we do? So the change is really a top-down process. They identify the need for the change. Then there is a communication for this need. The interventions are planned. The change is implemented, and then there is evaluation of change. This is a very logical process. But in reality, it doesn't happen like this. There's so much of back and forth that happens, because as change starts, there's not everybody on board. And one of the most important points to consider is managing emotions is as much a part of change management as the logical process itself. So the process, while it looks very logical, looks very rational, the actual implementation of change itself is extremely challenging. And a lot of change initiatives really fail. And they fail because of a number of reasons. There are a lot of challenges when we talk about change management. First of all, the entire planning process itself. The planning has to be meticulous for a change. However, the stimulus for change can come suddenly, like this pandemic, it came suddenly. Or the stimulus for change may, if you are not prepared for change, if you are not already looking out, if you are not, for example, you are a leader and you have your head in the sand and you don't know what's going on around you, you don't know what your competition is doing, and your planning is failing. And that's when, suddenly you need to change. And that's so the entire planning process. Risk identification. Yes, you start saying that I'm going to change this, I'm going to change my policy, I'm going to change something, but there are so many risks which are involved. So have you identified all these risks? Where are those risks? The biggest challenge is getting employees on board. So like all of us know that change is something people are not happy with. We want homeostasis. We want everything to be in balance. And whenever there is change, there can be a lot of resistance, a lot of emotions, and then managing that entire change. So you have to have a system, you have to have a process that is going to support that change, which means that again, there are change within change. And then the thing is, you may start planning a change, but as you're implementing this change process, something else changes in between. See, in organizations, sometimes you hear that, they start a change management, maybe a structure change, somebody will change, a department will change. And then suddenly they realize that something in the market changes. So as they are going through change, they suddenly have to put a change on top of change. So from the time you have been planning this change to the time you are actually implementing the change, something else may change. And this can create a lot of stress, lot of chaos for the employees. There may be turnover, there could be a lot of job stress. So all these things can happen when you're implementing. And that's the reason change management is so critical, and leaders have to be very much prepared for how to implement this change management. The other aspect of change, why it's such a challenge, is because it has to do with culture. And when we say culture, it's the way we do things here. It's like in the this is how it's done. And you want to change that in some way, and obviously people are going to be not very happy about it. So when we talk of change, there are people who are very ready to change. There are some people who are fence sitters, and there are a lot of people who are laggards. They don't want to change. So you have to respond to changes in, for different employees or different groups of your stakeholders in different ways. What are the different responses to change? Now, from employees' side, typically there is fear. There is a sense of lack of control. And a lot of employees are not really proactive. They don't go to the management and say, we will do this. they are receiving the change, and a lot of them could be demotivated, and they do not want to invest emotionally, and all this is because of uncertainty. They are not certain about that this change is really going to be beneficial for them. A lot of them start getting scared that the change is going to affect them negatively in some way. They may lose their pay, they may lose their status, they may lose their role, they may lose their jobs. So it could be anything. And of course, in the context of the new industry and technology and automation and all these kind of things, the industry, the whatever is happening in the industry, there's a lot of fear and skepticism. You need to be prepared for this 21st or the next century and whatever's happening, in the industry, in the technology. So the preparation is very important. So, but the employees are very, very much afraid, and they may be demotivated. It may lead to a lack of morale. So they may not support due to insecurities in their personal life, professional life, and situations, and many other reasons. Now, for management also, this phase of change is very stressful. Half of their stress is in trying to understand what this change means, even for them, because they are also employees, right? So for them, a lot of management is really doing this change because of a top management direction. The company has decided to change. The company has decided to implement a system. I remember, when computers came in the 90s, when the computers came to banks, for example, the bank people used to go on strike because computers they thought computers were going to take away their jobs. So there used to be strikes across the nation in the banks. And today we cannot even imagine a bank that operates without a computer. So, but then these are the kind of stresses that people face when they are going through any kind of change. There's a lot of uncertainty. And a lot of their stress comes from the fact that they have to put in a lot to motivate their employees. They have to keep explaining. I can see, like, for example, in my husband's company, a lot of changes going on. A lot of his time on the phone goes on explaining to people what is changing and what is expected of them, efforts to motivate them, make them feel validated, make them feel secure. Sometimes management has to use coercion, and that's very unpleasant for a lot of people. And then one change, it really needs changes in all the related policies and processes and procedures. And changing management styles or trying to translate the change for employees and managing emotions is a huge part of how to respond to change. And some of the stuff that we do in change management workshops for organizations really handles all these things. How are they going to do these? This requires a lot of leadership skills, right? So the question then is, if change management is very essential, it's absolutely necessary, and it's so challenging, and it's causing a lot of change efforts can fail, then is there any other way? So what other way can we use to manage change or to initiate change? And one of the answers to that is making use of appreciative inquiry. Now, appreciative inquiry can be a method to implement change. It could be an approach to change management. A very brief background. So it was developed at the Case Western University Department of Organizational Behavior by David Cooper Ryder and Suresh Srivastava. So they wrote an article called Inquiry into Organizational Life in 1987. And what they felt was that companies are making use of this problem-solving approach a lot, and it hampered a kind of a social improvement. So their exploration was a little bit broader, and they said that what was needed was new methods of inquiry to generate ideas and models for how to organize. And taking from action research and social constructivism, they came up with this approach of appreciative inquiry. So appreciative is valuing or affirming, and inquiry is exploring, asking questions. So they so it's interesting. So the you know that action research is something that goes on simultaneously as you are doing something, the change is happening, right? So taking from those aspects, they came up with this model that if we do this kind of thing, appreciative inquiry, then maybe the change is going to be easier, or it can be more, it could be accepted better. So what exactly is this appreciative inquiry? So it relates to collaborative approach to co-create a future. Now see, the traditional change management is coming from top down, right? So here it is a collaboration to co-create a future. So it's like everybody is involved in, okay, where do we want to go? And this is the biggest difference in the traditional change management versus appreciative inquiry. It's a strengths-based approach that focuses on what is working rather than what needs fixing. So the traditional change management, you are asking, okay, what needs to be improved? Which means what is lacking? Where is the gap? So you start finding gaps and you start finding problems. You start framing things as something is not working. Whereas appreciative inquiry focuses on, okay, this is working. What can we do? What are our strengths? So we start from understanding our strengths to making things work better through self-determination. So everybody is involved in it. You want to change, you want to change because that's where you want to go. And that is that 4D or 5D model of appreciative inquiry that will come in a minute. So there are some very specific techniques and operational steps which are used to bring about this positive change, and we'll just talk about it in a little bit. Right. So some of these methodologies involve getting stories of success from organizations when they are at their best, when employees are at their best, when they're performing at their best. And instead of a usual SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis is you analyze your strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, right? So you do a SWOT analysis and then you want to bridge the gap. So here they say that do a SOAR analysis. So SOAR analysis is you identify your strengths, identify those opportunities where you want to make use of, what are your aspirations and what are your results. So this is a very different framework. It's a different mindset that you are entering when you are changing. Now remember, this framework is applicable even for you as a person. So right now we are looking at it as a change management for organizations, but remember, this is applicable even at individual levels. If you want to change, if you want your life to change, then this is an approach that you can take. There are certain assumptions of appreciative inquiry, and these assumptions are very important because that's how, it's based on these assumptions. And what are these assumptions? It says that in every society, organization, or group, something works. Okay, so not everything is a failure, not everything is negative. So something is working. And that's why, of course, we as organizations, communities, we are thriving, right? Now, what we focus on becomes our reality. So it's like, okay, let's focus on what is working. And that becomes the reality. You see, when we focus on something, we are motivated to work on that, right? So that becomes our reality, whatever our focus is. Now, reality is created in the moment, and there are multiple realities. Remember, reality for me, as I experience, may be different from a reality that somebody else is experiencing at the same time. So suppose we talk about, say, our university, right? So under the university, there are departments, there are colleges. For every college, every department, there are different realities because their experience, there are some things which are same, there are some things which are different. So everybody is experiencing something in a different way, and the reality is being created in the moment. And there are multiple realities that people are experiencing, groups are experiencing. The act of asking questions of an organization or group influences the group in some way. This, in psychology, we can all relate to this, the way you ask questions. So language is very important, how you ask. If you, for example, ask somebody, what's wrong with you, they're going to start focusing on what's wrong with them. If you ask somebody what's good with you, what's going on, what's positive, what's nice about you, they're going to focus on what is nice about them, right? So it's just the act of asking question influences the group in some way. And people have more confidence and comfort to journey to the future, that is the unknown, when they carry forward the parts of the past. So suppose you say, yeah, we have to change. Okay, when you have to change, you don't have to just start all over again. You don't have a clean slate. You can take things which you knew were working well, and then you can move to the future, right? So there is a continuity, and there is a confidence and comfort that your journey is based on something you already know. So it's not completely unknown. And if we carry parts of the past forward, they should be what is best about the past. Obviously, you want to move to the future. You want to carry what was working, and leave behind what was not working, right? So they should be. Oops, sorry about that. The mouse just ran. Okay. Yeah. And then it is important to value differences. Like, it says that there are multiple realities. So it's always important to understand perspectives. And I may have one perspective and somebody else may have another perspective, and that's absolutely okay. So it's not necessary that everybody has to have the same, but yes, in the end, they have to all come to a same understanding. But when you start valuing differences, you can have a dialogue, right? This is very important. And then the language we use creates our reality. And it's again, how we ask those questions, how we frame the questions, that is very important in one of the assumptions of appreciative inquiry. Then there are 5 principles of appreciative inquiry. So these were the assumptions, and then there are principles. The first principle is constructionist principle. We create a world with our words and what we mean. This is very important. Like I gave an example, right? You ask somebody what is wrong with you, then they're going to focus on what is wrong with them. So we are creating, when we talk to children, when we talk to somebody, are we empowering them? It's very important to understand, to be very conscious about what we are saying and how we are saying, what we mean, because what we say to somebody is going to affect that person. So this is the constructionist principle. There is a principle of simultaneity. The moment we question or inquire, we start creating the change. So this is again a very profound statement, right? The moment we question, we start creating the change, because that's where the seed of change, how can we be better? If we start asking, each one of us, if we start asking that question, how can I do better? It starts that process of change. It changes your thinking. The poetic principle says that we have a choice in the world. Yeah, we can choose the focus of the study. We can choose to change whatever we want to change. So in terms of organizations, we can choose to change our teams, our groups, our structures, the whole organization. In our personal life, we can choose to change our habits. We could choose to change our life goals, our careers. It doesn't matter. We have a choice. This is what this particular principle says. And when we are looking at change management in the eyes of, or the approach of appreciative inquiry, we use these principles. The anticipatory principle says that our images of future drive our actions today. Strong positive images. So we do things like visioning exercise. What is your vision? Where do you want to be? How do you want to see yourself? So the visioning boards that we can use. right? It could be done for, for an organization, it's your organization's vision. And it's very important that for a department, right? For your department, what is your vision? It's very important that you keep revisiting these visions and these, statements periodically, because your environment is changing. And if you stick to just an old vision, you may miss somewhere, right? So you have to make sure that that vision can remain the same, but it is important to know that you are going consciously, that anticipatory principle. So an image of the future, where do you see yourself, where do you see your department, where do you see your organization, where do you see your team, what are you going to be doing? So this will propel our action, and this will start us asking that question, right? And this will be the start of your change. And then the positive principle is that more positive the question, the greater and longer lasting the change, because change requires a lot of positive bonding and messages. So uh, now see, it's kind of very different from the traditional change management, where it's like a top down thing. It is, where employees are going to be forced into accepting the change. There's a lot of stress, there may be demotivation. This is all, everybody's working together on the change, and this is a very important aspect of appreciative inquiry. Now, a couple of examples. Okay, so how are you framing your change management questions today? So, for example, in the industry, we can say that work from home is not possible for all our employees. So, in different industries, you can have, for example, in the IT industry, a lot of people can work from home. But in other industries, it depends on the function, it depends on what kind of role you have, and it may or may not be possible for everybody to work from home. Again, work from home, it depends on so many things, like, the success of this work from home. How is it stressing people out? Like, I've heard people saying that this work from home is stressing them out because their work is not ending now. They used to say, I go to college at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, I come back at 5 o'clock, or they go to their work at whatever time they are coming back. But now it's like they are constantly on the job. So they feel that, work, they're doing a lot of work, and they are losing some of that work life balance. In education, for example, we'll have this thing, like we are not able to have regular classes, and students are having problems. Like, even the students are complaining that a lot of times they are not enjoying the online class, they're missing their friends. So there are a lot of these issues which are currently in the current situation. So just how we are framing these questions for change management. In the typical change management situation, we would have addressed this as a problem, and then we are looking at how to resolve this problem. We'll think of interventions, we'll think of implementation, and so on. But now, if we look at appreciative inquiry, how are we going to apply this model to these questions of change? And this is the process, this is the cycle, this is the circle of appreciative inquiry. It starts from discovering what is, to dreaming about a future state, designing some the steps how to get there, and what we do to get there, and what do we do when we get there. So this is, and it all starts from a very strong positive core. Now, this positive core is the affirmative topic. This is where you start from. So instead of saying what is wrong with me, you start with what is right with me. Instead of saying what's wrong with the current situation, start with, okay, what are all those positive things in the current situation? What are the things which are working? So once you have this positive core, this is where you can start looking at optimism. It can make people hopeful. It can motivate people. There's a lot of resilience, because the moment we start saying things are working, then there's optimism. And if someone says, oh, nothing is working, then there is no optimism. Then you have to work harder to make people understand that there are certain things which are working. So you start off with this very strong positive core, and then you start defining, asking questions. Now remember, you're applying the principle of simultaneity and poetic principles simultaneously. You start asking the question, the change starts. It is the seed of change. And poetic principle is you are free to decide what is it that you want to focus. So in the current situation, are you going to focus on, say, work from home? Are you going to focus on the employees who cannot work from home? Are you going to focus on the students who are doing only online classes? What are you going to focus on? Okay, what is the why are we doing this? And framing the questions is the critical starting point of AI. So you define it. The important thing to know is how you are framing the questions. That becomes very important. So for example, are we saying work from home is not possible for all our employees? Our students cannot attend on-campus classes. Okay, so these are the typical, very normal questions that we are going to pose. But suppose we reframe. So all our work, the important thing is, okay, all our employees can work. They can work. Let's begin with that. Instead of saying work from home is not possible for all our employees, let us reframe our language. All our employees can work. Some functions from home, others on site. And then we are saying, okay, how can we enable our employees to work safely based on their functions? So those who cannot work from home, how can they work safely in the environment? So now you start, you start asking these questions in a very different method. Our students cannot attend on-campus classes. So you can say our students can attend online classes and there are other modes of learning. So the moment you start framing these questions or these statements in a different way, you can get your focus is now different. And then you can start, okay, what are the strengths of online learning? What other options are available? Okay, what are the ways we can reach out to our students? So these are some of the other questions that we can ask. Give me just 1 minute, okay? I'll just come. There is another WebEx going on in the next room. I'll just tell them to. Just 1 minute. Volume coming. Yeah, it's disturbing. Please. Yeah. So sorry about that. There was something else going on. This is the hazard of working from home. When some in the other room also there is another call going on. So let's so reframing the question. So this is the define phase. And the first step is to discover. So what is this discover phase? So discover really starts from this positive core and you're appreciating things and you start taking these appreciative interviews and you are taking stories from these different levels and groups and you are focusing on what you want to achieve. So what do you value? What is important? Why is it important? What contributed to it? What would you wish for? So really it is, you are taking these interviews, you're taking data from everybody, you're really taking stories of people. And this is a methodology, like we said, right? There are some very specific methods and techniques. So this is a particular method that you have to start taking these stories, and this phase starts getting participants engaged in the process, and there is positivity and change in the mood. So the moment you start asking people about their stories, remember, you as management or as faculty or as decision makers, you do not have to take extra effort to motivate people. They're already in the process. They're already being involved. So it's very highly empowering for these employees, for your stakeholders, to be a part of that change. It's a part of that journey, enjoying that journey together, right? So for example, let's look at the student side of it. So the discover phase typically has groups working in pairs or threes. They are sharing these stories. These stories are very deep. And then the learning from these stories is crystallized to move to the next step. So it is very qualitative in nature. If you look at it, how it goes, it's not quantitative where you're giving them some questionnaires and they're, answering. This is a very qualitative orientation to the data collection also. So what are the stories of students? For example, you can use this AI approach and you can do one little study, or you can do an AI yourself, right? What are the stories of students who do well online? What do they learn best? How have they handled the challenge so far? What can each one do to make it better? So you are now focusing. See, all the focus is, it's not about what's your problem. It is about what is working well for you. For employees, it could be, okay, what is contributing to your success today? You know, what was making you, or what makes you work best? When do you function best? What can be done to help me perform better, or help them perform better? So whether you are in the organization or the university, since this group has both, I try to, take examples from both scenarios here, right? You can extend this to yourself also. From the discover state, you come to the dream state. Okay, so the dream state is imagining. What are the possibilities? What might be? What are those opportunities? And then it is applying this anticipatory principle where you are talking about images of success. Now, these images could be visual or they could be words. So imagine where do you want to be? So suppose, for example, if I'm doing a visioning exercise with a team or with a group, I tell them, okay, close your eyes. Can you get an image of yourself, if it's personal, or your organization? Where do you want to be? What is it that you are seeing in front of you? What are you telling yourself? How are you telling yourself? How are you describing yourself? Can you bring that vision? And then, okay, these images of success can propel people towards the success, and then they feel motivated. So instead of, again, constantly look how different it is from a standard change management approach. So you are energizing the entire group by creating these dreams. And then comes the design phase. Now, the design phase is really the more realistic kind of phase, where you are deep diving and you are asking, what is feasible? Where do we want to go? Who is, and remember, in the discover phase, you were talking about strength and stories, right? How did you draw these strengths and stories to create these dreams? So it's all related. It's not, it has to go in that process. And then where do you want to be? What is it that you want to achieve? So all this is, what does your dream look like? This is how you work through the dream phase. You also talk about how this language is worded when you are working through the dream phase. And then you come to the design phase, which is like the more realistic part of your process. In the design phase, you are co-creating, and here's where your action plan actually starts. Okay, so till the dream phase, it's like, yeah, this is what propelled me, this is what made me successful, this is my dream, and this is my vision, this is what how we are going to achieve it. Then the design phase is, okay, how are we going to achieve it? The most important point here to remember is, there is no top management who is doing the plan and then telling you what to do. It is collaborating. So every team member, everybody who's involved, all the stakeholders are collaborating to create this action plan to achieve the dream. And it's driven by the employees. So remember how it is, from the grassroots, it's from the bottom up. It is from everybody involved. It's collaboration. And this is the most important word in appreciative inquiry. It's about collaborating, co-creating, right? Based on this positive core. See, this positive core doesn't go anywhere. You're constantly working through them. And then everybody is involved has a responsibility in creating the action plans. How do you work through the design phase? It's all about collaborative work, co-creating the possibilities, creative thinking, right? So now you are going more into the creative thinking part of it, because you want to achieve your dreams. it's more realistic because you're now asking the questions: is it proactive, is it grounded in reality? The dream also should be achievable, right? Is it participative? Does it stimulate learning? What is the roadmap that you have created, and what is the image that you have created, and does this image propel you? Is it compelling for you? And remember, because you're working in groups, right, you are constantly looking at the multiple realities. So the multiple realities, the differences, differences in experiences are all already there, and that's the reason you need to collaborate. So when everybody is heard and everybody feels that they are included, it's much easier to create this change rather than either a top management telling us what to do, or forcing us to change, or one group trying to change another group. So here everybody is involved, and that's why acceptance is very high. And from the design, you move towards the destiny. The destiny is what will be. Okay, you're creating an appreciative learning culture, and the important words here are empowering, innovating, improving, learning. And this is like the positive principle. The more positive it is, the more long lasting, more motivating it is. Since the group has been involved right from the beginning, their commitment to change is very high. And of course, when we talk about this, there are certain specific techniques. Like, for example, in the discover phase, you may have, a particular group. In the dream phase, you can move around that group. It's not the same group which is working. So it's like a different group. So there are ways to work through through the dynamics of this whole thing. And the workshops really, they are around how to implement this appreciative inquiry, or make AI a part of your change management approach itself. What do we and then we are working towards the destiny, and we are asking, well, how committed are we? Are we taking ownership for the destiny? What is our role? What are the strategy? What are the linkages? And how are we going to sustain this change? And this destiny phase is all about putting this design into action, and the commitment to change project in the ways that were agreed upon. Now, commitment is also very easy because everybody is committed to that vision. And of course, there may be people who along the way may not, they may change their direction, but more or less, because it's a group involvement right from the beginning, there is more chance that these people are going to be involved in that change itself. And because it's also drawn upon this action research kind of process, it's more likely that the change is happening. As all this is happening, the change is also happening. So and then once you're in the change phase, you go back to the discovery phase. Like, okay, now what is working? Can we build more? So it's like something that goes on. It's like a continuous learning, continuous improvement process. Now, there are certain pros and cons for this approach. The pros are, of course, it's highly motivating, it's very empowering, participative, and fairly easy to implement, because all you need to do is involve people right from the beginning. And it's not very difficult in the sense that you don't need a lot of tools, techniques. However, it requires time. It requires everybody to be involved at all levels. The involvement right from the beginning has to be there. And then it needs mindset changes, especially in the leadership, where the leaders have to have this, that, yeah, let me involve everybody. So sometimes it is, mindset changes, not for leaders as well as for employees. In an organization where, employees may feel that we are never heard, something like this may be a little difficult initially. Like, are they going to take me seriously? We may come up with changes, but will they listen? These kind of things. And it may be difficult in some organizations and in some situations. For example, there's a crisis looming. When the crisis is looming, you may not be able to do all this the way you want to do it, This is more for some kind of a planned change. Now, when the pandemic hit and everybody had to go work from home, you could not have, it had to be a top management decision that yes, we need to work from home. But now, because we can foresee that next 6 months may be very challenging, like how are we going to normalize things? What is the new normal? Is there a new normal in the first place? So in this kind of things where you can probably plan, you can make use of this kind of an approach much better. That's I feel you can make use of it much better than when suddenly there's a crisis, when the leadership has to take the decision to change and make those changes happen. And then you can use this appreciative inquiry approach to then get people involved and say, okay, now this is how we are working, and let's see what is working and how can we make it work better. Okay, so it could be probably it can be implemented at some point of change which is already there. A lot of success stories. Many companies have implemented they've implemented appreciative inquiry, large and small organizations, non-profits, public sectors. It's gaining a lot of, in the 2000s and so on, it was gaining a lot of popularity. So there are all these various, United Nations, for example, Walmart, John Deere, US Navy. So government, international organizations and companies. There are just some of them which are, written, which are noted on this davidcooperrider.com sites. And I've given in this presentation all the various references for this presentation. Where can you apply appreciative inquiry? What kind of changes? So of course, when you want to have a culture change in your organization, it could be your college, your department, your company, your team, right? It could be labor relations. So, how will you involve labor in making those decisions? So the thing is, when you are involving your labor or your employees, they are more committed to that because they are the ones who come up with the design, with the destiny, with the dream. And this is how we are going to, achieve the dream. It could be some kind of a strategic change, whether it's, the change can be big. It could be transformation change, like org structure changes. It could be big changes like mergers. It could be restructuring. It could be business redesign. You're redesigning the entire business process maybe. So there could be, so the applications could be for large changes as well as small changes. And the engagements can be at various levels. So there is something called an appreciative inquiry summit where, large, you can get all your stakeholders, you can get your customers, you can get your vendors, you can get, people outside the organization also to take part in your appreciative inquiry summit. So it's like very large. And then you can have it for large groups. Or you can have this for core groups who come together and they are the ones who are forming these. It can be for some very specific group or a team or a department. It could also be that you have some appreciative inquiry learning teams. Some folks come together and they are, trying to, they are trying to study this, or they are trying to lead this through appreciative inquiry. Or you could have progressive appreciative inquiry meetings. So these are some of the dynamics of how you can implement this appreciative inquiry. It can be applied to any domain or sphere of change, and start with the domain as the topic or the focus. So for example, I want my department to change. So that department can become a topic or the focus. Remember, in the define phase, then you start asking or framing the right questions at this, the define or discover phase. And then you can start the dream, and then destiny, and then design and destiny. So then the other things will fall in place, right? Now you have to choose an area of priority that you want to strengthen and work, and then you work through the cycle. So you choose in your department or in your company, if you're in an organization, what is it that you want to change? What is your priority right now? What is that burning issue right now? So you choose this area of priority that you want to strengthen, and then you do a SOAR analysis. What are the strengths right now? What is working right now? And then what are the opportunities? What do we want to do? Aspirations. This is uh, your dream, right? What is the aspiration? Where do we want to be? And then what is the destiny? So you do this kind of a SOAR analysis instead of a regular SWOT analysis, and you start working through this entire appreciative inquiry process. And don't forget this positive core in the which is at the center of everything. And this appreciative inquiry will lead you to a new reality, and it's a new way into the new reality. And the question that I want to leave all of you with today is, how will you apply the concepts of appreciative inquiry to manage the change? All of us are going through change. So how are you going to apply these concepts that I just went through in this presentation? The discovery, dream, okay, design, and destiny. So how will you apply these concepts? So that is the end of my presentation, and I will take in any questions and answer to the best of my ability. And if I do not know, I will say I don't know the answer, and we can discover it together. Okay, so at this point, I'll stop sharing, and yeah. So that was my presentation for this hour. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to some questions. So Sandeep Kumar sir.
Yes, Swati, we have one question from Badru Nisha Khan, madam. She says working from home is a big problem, as it is not possible to each and every employee and even a student as well, as the other organizations relate to it. So how this problem can be resolved? So can you throw some light on this?
Right. So oops. So what in the language of appreciative inquiry, what are the opportunities? So for example, if we framing it as a problem, or are we framing it as, okay, what are the options for students to study? So it is the framing that question itself. It starts with that. How are we going to reframe this question? So are we going the traditional change management approaches? We are going to frame it as a problem. Here we start framing it as an opportunity, or we start framing from the strengths. So we can say that, okay, who are all those people who can work from home? Who are all those people who can study from home? What are they having? Versus, what is it that the other students can do? Okay, see, there is a difference in how we are framing the question. What is it that the other students can do, and what can they do differently so that they are also included? So it's a very challenging thing, and that's why we need to get the stories together, because me as an individual, or madam as an individual, or somebody may not be able to answer this because we don't know their realities. That is why getting the stories is very important in appreciative inquiries. You have to go and ask these stories. Right? I hope I am answering these questions. Did I answer the question?
Sure. So there are there is another query from I think it is from Shama Khalye. So as you mentioned, AI requires involvement of many. This seems practically challenging. So what is your experience? Do employees get involved in such rigorous process and sustain in the process, or do any steps need to be taken to motivate employees to get in and remain involved in this AI process, appreciative inquiry process?
Yeah. So whatever literature says is like this AI once people get committed to it, they are motivated to it because it is based on their own stories. So for example, all the success stories that are shared with appreciative inquiry as an approach really requires the commitment first of all. And if that commitment is not there, obviously it's going to be a challenge. So the commitment comes from the employees or the stakeholders, and the commitment comes from leadership. And that's why that mindset changed. One of the cons of the disadvantages is that it can become very difficult. It is challenging. It's a mindset change. It's a very different approach. So yes, Shama, you're right, it can be challenging.
Yeah. So thank you, Swati. It was wonderful listening to you in a very comprehensive way. You have presented your views regarding this appreciative inquiry. So, in the last, I would like to request Soumya to present vote of thanks to Dr. Swati and all the participants. Soumya.
Yes, sir. A very good evening, everyone. It is my privilege today to propose a vote of thanks on today's session of Udyog Care Talk. My heartfelt thanks goes out to Dr. Swati Karve for her informative and enriching lecture on appreciative inquiry for change management. Since Dr. Karve has extensive experience as corporate trainer and human resource consultant, her inputs today have been invaluable. So thank you very much, Dr. Karve, for addressing us all today. I would also like to thank the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology, Varanasi, and Dr. Sandeep Kumar sir for this wonderful session on a topic that is very much the need of the hour. Last but not the least, my special thanks goes out to all the participants today for your gracious virtual presence. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Swati. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sandeep. Thanks, all the participants. You all spent your time to come and listen to this lecture. I hope there was some new ideas that you walk away with. And I'm always available on email, or you can contact me for anything, any questions. You are free to debate this. I just presented the literature on whatever AI is, and you can make use of AI as an approach, as a positive approach to your traditional change management. I mean, any leader for that matter, when they start involving employees, involving stakeholders, is going to find success in their change efforts. So thank you very much, Sandeep sir, and all the participants, SOIOP, for giving this opportunity to give this lecture. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Swati. Thank you, all the participants. And I hope we'll come with new such sessions in future as well. So next week, we are also having a session of Dr. R.K. Pradhan. He will be talking about some emotional aspects of our life. So thank you very much.